thank you for joining me for the Parenting Teens show, where I have a special guest today, Barby Jimenez, where she's going to be talking to us about conscious parenting. Now, I'm ready to jump on in to understand what conscious parenting is, because I understand that it is a development of multiple things. And so, welcome, Barby, to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Chantay. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time to share with the Parenting Teens audience. Now we have a little bit of information about you in terms of your background. Not only are you a mother of two, age 17 and 14, so you know the concept of parenting teenagers in by nature, right? And so,
Yep.
yeah. So you've used and adapted years of experience in the education field towards understanding your own conscious parenting journey to guide parents to awaken to this new paradigm shift of parenting more consciously. Now, tell us a little bit more about that. How can we put that in a structured way to where individuals really know what conscious parenting is all about?
Yeah. So the easiest way is to kind of do a comparison of what traditional parenting looks like versus conscious parenting. And trust me, as a former educator and starting out with young children back in the day, I was definitely in the traditional parenting paradigm, as many of us are, because we've been raised that way, as well as that's what the parenting books out there teach us. And so parenting in the traditional way looks like a hierarchy of the parent being up above, in control, and the child being in a way lesser than. And we as the adults are hyper focused on their behaviors and controlling or managing their behaviors to, in essence, get them to do what we want and what
How
we
do we
need.
transition that to teenagers, though? How do we transition that from little kids to teenagers?
Yeah. So, working with teenagers is an extra challenge if you haven't started parenting more consciously already, because they're at a point where they can pretty much smell your BS coming down the hallway before you even get there. And so they're aware of your patterns. They're aware of your baggage, in essence, that you're bringing into the relationship. And so, and being a teenager, they're already developmentally, their brain is in a state of development where they're supposed to be taking risks to be able to separate themselves from you and go out into the world as an independent being. And
Right.
so, they're pushing for that. And then a lot of times we as parents are still trying to control everything.
Right.
So conscious parenting kind of flips it on its head, and it tells the parent, focus on you and what you're bringing to the relationship. It's more about focusing on the relationship versus focusing on the behaviors and managing of those behaviors, right? It's understanding that under every single behavior, there is an unmet need, both for us and for the child or the teen, right? And so when we start to feel triggered and we start to feel like we're about to lose it, we have to recognize that's coming from within us. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we think it's the child or the teen or the other person doing something to us. And that's what we've been conditioned to believe. And if we have that mentality and that thought process, we'll stay stuck in it and we'll just keep blaming and blaming and blaming. And they'll keep pushing back at us because they don't want to be blamed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a dance, right? It's not such a linear do XYZ to get, ABC or
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. It's a dance. It's a relationship that you're trying to work within and connect with your child. And so conscious parenting tells a parent, look within. If triggers were universal and were exactly the same for everybody, then maybe there is something to say that it's on the outside, but they're not. Triggers are highly, highly independent to each person. That's why you may get upset if your child talks back to you and another parent may not. I may get upset if my child yells at me, and another parent may not. It all depends on what our inner wounds are.
Mm-hmm.
That's where our triggers are coming from. It's a wound we haven't healed, likely from our own childhood or our own life experiences. And then the child has a behavior that touches that wound and reactivates it. And then we lose it.
Before we kind of move further into that, let's kind of summarize for the audience some of the things that you've been sharing. So conscious parents looks at the behavior and the mindset and the thoughts of the parent versus the behavior of the teenager. And during the teenager phase, the teenager is seeking independence away from mom, away from dad, their values, their standards, and they're trying to develop their own values and standards towards the world. Now, while parents do their best to try to instill these particular things, the teenager biologically has a component in their brain that helps them to say, I want to feel in charge. I want to feel in control. I don't want my parents to tell me what to do, how to do it, et cetera. And so that's that search for independence. Now, as you guys are aware, I'm a medical provider and I provide services for teenagers as well as their parents. But on the side of that, I also do parenting teams coaching. And so that's why we're trying to break it down to help them to understand what this really is. And so as a result of that, as you kind of talked about that kickback, those moments of disconnection, those moments of disappointment, those moments of anger, frustration, disorganization in the home and with the child and relationship. So with that being stated, that's kind of a summary of some of the things, Barbie, that you were stating. Now, kind of tell me this, what would you say the first step is to beginning this shift for the parents to understand these particular dynamics? What does that look like now, especially to a parent who parents traditionally with the authoritative? You do what I say, when I do it, so when I say it, how I say it, how long I say it. And if you don't do this, then you're threatening my authority. And so then I need to kick back. In other words, when we say kick back, or I say kick back, I mean respond in such a way out of that discomfort. Really, it's the inability to control your emotions. But so concerning your training and your teaching, what would this first step be to shift into this conscious parent?
Yeah, so one of the things I find easiest for parents to understand this is by also bringing in that component of biology, right? And so a child or a teenager's brain is not fully developed yet. Their prefrontal cortex, as you know, is not fully developed. And that's where all the executive function skills, problem solving, decision making, right? It's not there. So in addition to them wanting...
Layman's term. What does that mean in layman's term?
The ability for them to regulate their emotions and calm themselves down and not react. The ability for them to see what are the consequences of my actions. The ability for them to make decisions based on that. It's not there yet till about the age of 25, right? So ours is supposedly, right? As the adult and the parent in the relationship. So I tell parents, they are still borrowing your ability to self-regulate. So if you're modeling out of controlness, that's what they're gonna react to as well, right? It's like two icebergs. Like I use the metaphor of an iceberg, and the top of the iceberg is the behaviors that you see. Yeah. But under the iceberg, if you go under the water, the iceberg is just as big, but those are all the unmet needs and feelings that you don't see. If you come to your child as another iceberg, you're just gonna do this. You're gonna clash. And you're going to have conflict, and you're not going to get anywhere because both of you are going to shut down. Biologically, you're going to go into fight or flight, and you're either going to defend yourself or walk away angry, right, with all your feelings. So I teach parents, you need to become the water so you can flow around them. And how do you do that? Like you were asking, what are the steps? Yeah. First is the slightest little awareness of noticing you're about to lose it.
Okay.
That slightest little awareness is going to help you to create a pause between you losing it and being reactive, and you being able to calm yourself down so you can choose how you're going to respond. You have no choice when you're in reaction. Your body takes over. You go into fight or flight. You're ready to either attack or run from that lion, right? Which in this case is your teenager. So it's really about first noticing, oh, something's coming up for me, right? It could be biological. It could be in your body. It could be like you sensing your jaw locking up. You're sensing your hands clenching. You're sensing your body getting hot.
So the trigger is already formed if you feel that. So what would be an easier approach for them to recognize a small portion of discomfort prior to the energy moving into the jaw, the fist, or what? Hopefully not the fist.
Well, you know, our body really is in essence one of our first signals. The problem is we're so disconnected from our body. It takes us a long time to recognize it. So even doing this exercise is going to help you to become more aware of those, right? And sometimes focusing in on the body will help you before the emotions kick in. So I really tell parents to become aware of that and then just stop. Do nothing, because we feel like we have to fix everything right then and there. You're not going to get anywhere if you're triggered, if you're in fight or flight, if you can't calm and self-regulate yourself, and you bring that energy to any conversation, relationship, you're not getting anywhere, because the other person is automatically going to go into fight or flight and need to defend themselves.
So let's take that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know, when thoughts come, because I want the audience to really get this totality. Right. So let's look at three types of parents of teenagers. Number one, let's look at a passive one. Let's look at a passive aggressive. And let's look at an aggressive parent. So when you're talking about the impulsivity of responding to a trigger or something that the teenager did that they didn't like, and they immediately want to fly off the handle to defend themselves and to regain their authority, that aggressive parent pretty much fits that bill. Now, for the passive aggressive parent, what's a passive aggressive person in the first place? This particular person is indirect. They may say something, but they're indirect. They don't address it head on. So it may be my mom, I would have never talked to my mom like that, like you just talked to me. I would have never. Versus the aggressive parent, who are you talking to?
Right.
I heard you. All this, that. And then you have that passive parent that says nothing, that walks away, that shakes their head and just lets the kid do what they want to do. And I have experience with all of these particular parents for a 20-year period. Right. So with that being said, let me bring that home towards what you were saying. Now, each of these three different parents we want to address throughout our conversations. And when each of these parents receive a trigger, that discomfort towards what the teenager did, what the teenager said, what the teenager didn't do that the parents feel like they should have, or the teenager didn't say what the parents feel like they should have. So all of these are pivotal points for triggering popping off, okay? Trigger is simply a discomfort. Somebody hit your button and it made me feel uncomfortable. And so I may have to respond to get that power back, that energy back. Okay, so in light of these particular parents, one may feel what you are stating, the jaw, the cues, okay? One may feel cues more than the other because of the regulation of the emotions. Now, all of them will feel that moment of discomfort, and their responses will be different. So share with me, would a step at the beginning of the step in shifting to this conscious parenting, would it look different for all three, or would it be one and the same for all three of these parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to just do one simple clarification here also. When we're talking about a trigger,
Mm-hmm.
and you refer to the buttons, right? If
Uh-huh.
we don't have buttons, no one can push them, right? So again, just I want parents listening to recognize and remember, because this could be a very different way of thinking about it, that the trigger is already inside of you. It's
Mm-hmm.
your button that's already living there, and your child is just doing something that's touching that button, but that button belongs to you. That trigger belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and like you said, their triggers are getting activated because of all our shoulds, all our expectations,
Yeah.
and our need for control. Again, because of our upbringing, because of our emotional lives, because of the way we see life, right? So many different things
Yeah.
that could be, you know, showing up that way. But
Right.
it's really becoming responsible and taking ownership of our triggers
Mm-hmm.
is pivotal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also all these parents, really the first step is just becoming aware of that you're feeling triggered. It doesn't matter what type of parent you are right now. It's becoming aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
and really stopping and doing nothing in the moment. I'm not saying become the passive parent, right? And do
Right.
nothing. Although I will say, when I started out on this journey, that's kind of where I had to go, because I was going from one extreme of ultimate control, and I had to almost go all the way to the other extreme of being passive for a little bit. And then I found my way back to balance and center. But at first, it's a practice of really just stopping and
Right.
doing nothing, because what you're doing is you're giving yourself an opportunity to not take it personal, which is
Okay.
what we do.
Okay.
All of us, no
Okay.
matter how it comes out later, whether a passive aggressive, or aggressive, the
Mm-hmm.
point is we're taking it personal because we
Sure.
are in fear
Uh-huh.
and we think we need control,
Okay.
whether it's control of ourselves or whether control of the child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do nothing in that moment. Go calm yourself down. And I would explicitly tell the teenager or child, I am feeling really triggered right now, and nothing helpful is going to come out of my mouth right now. I'm going to go calm myself down. What a wonderful lesson to model that for our children. Because what are
Right.
we modeling right now? We're losing it, and then we don't want them to lose it on us.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah.
modeling exactly what we don't want. Yet, like I said earlier, we're the ones, the prefrontal cortex and the ability to self-regulate, but we're not doing that. So we're teaching them. You were talking about the passive aggressive, and children, teenagers included, are highly sensitive to our energy.
Mm-hmm.
You could totally be saying one thing coming out of your mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and they can sense the energy you're really bringing that with.
Yeah, yeah, and I talk to parents about that, and really, I break it down to say your teenagers do not trust anything you say. You are a liar to them. And I say it in such a way that it's professional, but to help them to understand. Listen, this is what you're facing. You have cultivated your home and your relationship with your teenager to where there's no comfort, there's no sense of trust, there's no sense of vulnerability, and therefore every time you tell them that you're going to do something, they don't believe it. Why? Because historically your behavior, your conversations, the things that you say you're going to do, you never do. The things that you say you're not going to do, you do. So you change the dynamic, and you are surprised when you have cultivated a level of distrust in your relationship. Wow, really? And so, you really have to have the parents understand these components. I do want to talk about this though, because I'm a type of person that, practitioner and coach, I'm a type that understanding the entities, the small bits is what's going to help you to be able to change. Okay. So while you're talking about stopping, you're really talking about allowing your mind, your brain to re-regulate, meaning to slow
Right.
down.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at. Like, don't just stop and then do nothing at all, right? You stop and you go calm yourself down.
Mm-hmm.
That may look like you go for a walk. That may look like you go out in nature and spend some time there. That whatever you know, that may look like dancing. That may look like journaling, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't even know ourselves well enough to know what that looks like for us. So that's a journey in itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's about regulating ourselves, calming ourselves down, and then really processing for ourselves what just happened. Let's go backwards. I said this, my child said this, I felt this. Why did I feel that? What was going on in my head? What was the story I was telling myself about my child talking back to me? I remember I had my mother's voice in my head telling me, how can you let that little kid speak to you that way? You're the
Right.
adult here. You have to be in charge. That
Mm-hmm.
was my story. So I was taking it personal. I was feeling, we can't feel disrespected if we don't allow ourselves to feel disrespected, right? So it's recognizing that we are allowing ourselves to have these feelings. They are just showing their feelings in a very immature way, let's say.
Right.
Okay, because that's the level they're at, and that's the level they've learned from us, quite frankly.
Right.
So when they're exhibiting these behaviors, we have to go within and touch our own hearts and say, what's going on here for me? And then understanding, why am I feeling so triggered by this child yelling at me? Or why am I taking it personal? This has nothing to do with me. This is them having their feelings and displaying them the only way they know how. So then can I go back, letting go of that story? Can I go back and have a conversation and have, you were talking about the relationship in the home that is cultivated. Like,
Right.
the majority of our children do not feel safe if
Mm.
we have been parenting traditionally. That
Yeah.
is the number one thing a human being needs to feel in order to have a relationship, period.
Right. And we're
So
talking about emotional safety.
emotional safety, exactly. And so if a child does not feel safe, you're not going to get anywhere. If they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, they don't feel like they can be themselves, they can lose their stuff
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
once in a
Yeah.
while and still be loved unconditionally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you go back in the room once you calmed yourself down and you say, hey, I noticed you must have been having some pretty strong feelings that you yelled at me. Tell me, what was going on for you? And
Mm-hmm.
then you can connect with them
Mm-hmm.
and they feel seen, they feel heard. Now, it's going to take a while, like you said. If you've been on this paradigm for a long time of control and them not feeling safe emotionally to be vulnerable with you, it's going to take a while because they're not going to believe you. They're going to think, oh yeah, my parents and another new parenting kick, right? That's the reality, right? Because how many have we gone on in their lifetime, right? So it's going to take time. It's going to take time to build that relationship again. But connection is the way to get there. Safety, emotional safety, unconditional love is the way to get there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And noticing that, I remember my son would yell at me and lose his temper. And in my head, I was already putting him in jail.
Mm-hmm.
I was. It was like, oh my gosh, if I don't get this under control, he's gonna go out into society and lose his stuff on other people and yell at them and get beat up and end up in jail. That's like, he was 7 and
Yeah.
I already had him in jail, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
I wasn't aware of that. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't aware I was doing that until I started this journey of deconstructing what is going on inside of me. What are my fears that are coming up? And then once I understood myself, I could hold space for my son and my daughter. I could
Yeah.
hold space for them to have all the emotions and feelings and still feel safe.
I think
I felt safe.
Yeah, I think you're saying one of the key components there that can't be overlooked. When you felt safe for yourself, when you understood you, when you were conscious about you, when you understood what was in your way of parenting, which is your personal issues, right? When you understood that, then it could help you shift your mindset. But without that,
exactly,
without that self-awareness,
without that consciousness,
because we're really talking about learning to be vulnerable, the big V, right? So you must learn to be vulnerable with yourself first, in lieu of my life, what has happened in my life in the past. For an example, me and his dad don't get along, right? I hate him. And we don't realize that the romantic issues that we had with the child's father shows up. We don't try.
Yeah, it's there though.
We hold it in our pocket. Right. But the pain and the low self-esteem and the et cetera that comes from the relationship that didn't work out.
The wounds.
Yeah, the wounds. And so they are silent until they're not. And when they're not, you are putting all of those wounds on your teenager. Oh, he looked just like him. Things of that. Yeah. Now I'm just trying to break it down in layman's terms to help them understand your pain is real in your parenting. And so here's my tagline that I tell people: you are as powerful as a parent as you are as an individual. Okay? So you must be a powerful individual, aware individual, a healed individual in order to be the best that you can be in all other areas of your life.
Yeah. A lot of times we think that yelling is taking control.
Yeah.
And you're out of control if you're doing that, right? Empowerment comes from within. It's an energy. It's a sense that you walk in when you know, for example, you have to give your child a medication. It's life or death. You're going to walk in that room with an energy of, this is going to happen, no matter how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. They sense that. But when you are teeter-tottering and you're feeling fearful yourself and you're feeling angry or you're feeling sad or you're feeling discomfort, which a lot of it is discomfort because we don't know how to sit and observe another person's pain and discomfort. And so we go within and we get triggered and we react to that, or we try to fix it, right? Going back to control. So when we go there and we just start projecting and yelling, we're actually out of control.
Well, and really some people unconsciously are attempting to control their discomfort, as you're stating, but looking at it from a different twist. They're feeling uncomfortable, so I need to get myself back comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend that energy out. So now it's on you, and now you're uncomfortable, and I'm more comfortable. So that's what happened mentally.
Right.
And so we just want to make that clear. But share something with me here. In a partner-spouse relationship, in raising a teenager, what happens if the parents are on different pages?
Yeah, this is a question I get a lot. And so what I say in conscious parenting is, like we've been talking this whole time, the role of the parent is really about self-discovery. And you can't do that for anybody else. So if you have two adults, unless both of them are willing to go on that self journey and do their own work, you can't convince the other adult to do it. So it's really important to recognize that the only person you can control, for lack of a better word, is yourself. And so you are only responsible for your relationship with your child. Your spouse or partner or co-parent is responsible for their relationship with their child, as long as it's not abusive. Okay?
Right.
And we're not talking safety issues here, but in the realm of everything else, they're responsible for their own relationship. And children, and especially teens, they know that they can be a certain way with this parent and that they can't be with that parent. So, just keep doing you, keep being on your journey and doing your work and fostering your connected relationship with your child. And maybe when your partner sees that your parenting has shifted and your relationship, more importantly, with your child has shifted and theirs may not be going so well, then they may want to shift. But it has to be on their terms when they're ready. And it's hard. It's hard because you're trying to do all this work and it feels almost like they are, taking all your work away, right? Like they're reverting it. And so it's a mind shift, because it's not what's happening. Your child will know, this is how my relationship looks with mom. This is how my relationship looks with dad. This is how my relationship looks with grandma and grandma, right? All relationships are different, just as different as the human being. So it's healthier to focus on yourself and work on you and your relationship than to be hyper focused on the other one, because again, it'll just create more conflict. And it'll just create more conflict in the home, right? Because you're still trying to change another human being. In this case, instead of changing your child, you're trying to change your spouse, right? Or co-parent. So
that's a sign of other things as well, trying to control other people.
Right.
I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah.
That may be for another podcast, but let's quickly talk about where we can locate you on social media if the audience wants to learn more about you. Where can they meet you?
So it's my name. My website is Barby, Barby, Jimenez, JIMENEZ.com. And there are links to my Instagram, my Facebook, and all my offerings. I have a membership community for moms, and we have two calls a month and just get together and support each other and feel heard and seen, because we need that too. And we need to see that we're not alone on this journey. So I do that, and I have a summit coming up for women. And so it's all there on my website. People can come and check it out and connect with me if they feel called to.
Okay. So this particular summit, do you have it every year or every couple of months? And what's the fee for your summit? And I imagine because of the state that we're going through, it is virtual. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so this is actually the first time I'm doing this summit, and it's called the Living Connected Summit. It's for women to reconnect to those parts of ourselves that we have abandoned, especially when we become mothers, right? So it's going to have 5 experts talking about our menstrual cycles, our sexuality and intimacy, our feelings and how to integrate them, self-care, are pretty much finding our joy are the topics. It is a free conference, and if they sign up and register for my email list, they will be notified once it comes out. And I'm happy to have everybody join in and listen and learn together.
Okay, well, that is great. Great news for women who want to get in touch with themselves, get to know themselves again outside of the parenting bracket, because I've learned that so many parents lose themselves in the midst of parenting. And so I think that's a great summit. I think that they can go there. So guys, make sure you sign up for the summit. It is absolutely free, so there's no excuses, but there's going to be a wealth of value, I anticipate. So it's worth your time. So all of the information will be put, or rather the website will be put in the description. All you have to do is go to the description and take a look. So Barby, before we get ready to close out, I want to ask you this one question. What is the difference between parenting a teenager and a young child when it comes to conscious parenting?
You know, it's not much of a difference because our teenagers kind of are like toddlers again, right? Like our toddlers when they're two, when they're 2 years old and they discover that they could say no, or they want to try a new skill, but they're still looking back to make sure that we're there, right? So they're trying to explore yet feel safe. It's the same thing with our teenagers. They're trying to become independent, but they still need our safety, right? They still need us to be there as their safety net on their team.
Yeah, they're trying to learn to be independent, you mean, right?
Yeah. Did I say dependent? Oops. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for catching that. Yes, they're trying to be independent, but they still need us to be there for them on their team. And this is a life process. This conscious parenting. It's not a 1, 2, 3, And so that's what I do is I coach parents on this journey, and we have a group coaching call as well, a group that can support each other on this journey. So because it's hard work, right? It's hard work to rediscover ourselves, rediscover our wholeness, and yet parent at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And feel like we're in charge of guiding this other spirit. And so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, right? And shifting that is part of conscious parenting and realizing we're not here to create a mini-me.
That's interesting.
Right? We're not here to have our child live all the dreams we didn't.
Yeah.
Right?
And you know that's the fuel. That is the fuel for some of the parents' behaviors in getting upset, the shoulda, woulda,
exactly.
Because they are not acting the way I need them to act. I didn't have an opportunity to go to college. You are going to,
Exactly. And so that's where the self-awareness and essentially by the time they're teenagers, they're basically telling us, get a life. I am not your project.
Mm.
We think of parenting as our child is our project, our life project, and we dedicate our entire life and all our time and energy, and we're hyper focused on them, and they're telling us, I don't want all that.
Right.
Get your own life.
Right.
And let me live mine.
Right. And that's where all of the conflict comes in, especially I kind of call it the robot. You want them to be your robot. And
exactly.
Parents can be now, my teenager now is 33, but I tell you that parents can be, I don't want to use that word because slave drivers came to me, but I don't want to use that. That's not appropriate. Right. But I want to say that they make you, we kind of make our children, the teenagers out to be our doers, our, go get the remote control.
They're here to fulfill our lives.
Yeah. Go get this, do this. And the teenagers looking like, your hands broke? Now, and you can be mad if you're hearing me say this, but this is a conversation. I have real meaty conversations with teenagers. I keep it real. They keep it real. We build foster relationships. And I'll tell you that teenagers want the parent support. They want the parents to come in to support them and to keep them from doing unhealthy things. But number one, they're not going to be vulnerable enough to say that because they don't have the culture in the home for emotional safety. That's number one.
Exactly.
All the time. Yes, I want her to come in my room and ask me what's wrong. Yeah, I want him to be at my game. Yeah, but they're afraid to kind of be vulnerable. Well, we're talking about that V word again, right? And yeah. So when we're talking about modeling, I think that's a good space to start ending the podcast. I think we can model positive things, but we certainly can model unhealthy things.
Yep.
And when parents feel like, no, I didn't teach them that, you taught them indirectly. Remember that perspective has everything to do with the interpretation of life, what we do in life. So you may not have said that you don't like your dad, his dad, but all of your actions
speak louder than words.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I was saying in the earlier. You can be saying all the perfect things, but they're picking up on the energy, and they're watching everything you're doing and how you are fostering your other relationships. And so, and I would even take it a step further when you said about going into their room and asking them what's wrong. Don't even ask. Just go in their rooms and be. Just be with them. Just hold space for them. Just let them know I'm here for you, whatever you're going through. If you want to share, feel free, but you don't have to. I'm still here for you.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to tell us, you know why? Because we want to fix it.
Yeah.
We don't know how to not try to fix it. So before you try to fix anything, ask your child, do you want my opinion?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to just sit here quietly and hold space for you?
And or that can be a time to assess what you think your teenager needs. Like you were saying, for an example, you may not know what to say. You may have heard her arguing with her boyfriend on the phone and now she's crying. You may not know what to say, but maybe you can redirect it. Hey, you want to go and take a walk? Hey, you want to go to grandma's house? Hey, you want to call your best friend? Hey, do you want to do something? So return that energy, because the teenagers have a huge sense of going in and out of depression, and parents have no clue.
Right.
No clue. Yeah. So being able to foster a healthy relationship in the home is what we're really talking about at the end of the day, what conscious parenting is. Okay. So, Barby, I appreciate you. This has been a great conversation. I don't know about you. So again, audience, go ahead and take a look at Barby's website. We'll have everything in the description, and go ahead and pick up my book from Amazon, Your Wings Are Ready, The Miraculous Teenager's Journey. And so this particular book is written to your teenager, for your teenager, in teenage language. And this book is for the purpose of helping your teenage to learn financial literacy, emotional control, and the list goes on and on. It's a small little book because I know teenagers do not like to read. So this is something that I consciously and on purpose did to help the teenagers with all of my experience of working with teens. So again, I want to thank my guests for joining me. We are going to put this on our podcast platforms. We're also going to add it to our YouTube channel, The Parenting Teen Show. So go ahead and subscribe and like. Also share some ideas that you may want as well. So thank you again, Barby, for being here. It has been a treat and a pleasure.
Thank you, Chantay, for holding space for this conversation. It's been wonderful. And I highly encourage all the parents to also read that book, because a lot of us didn't have that when we were growing up. Right.
Better understanding and clarity. Well, I appreciate that. So thank you guys. Join us next week on the Parenting Teen Show on Thursday, and we'll have some more exciting and meaty conversation to help you to parent successfully. Bye for now. Bye.